Hi guys, I'm Daniela. I'm 18 now. This story began with me stealing $30 from my grandparents, and in a few years, it resulted in a complete break within my family and my parents invading my house and forcing me to give up my plans for going to college. I guess that's what's called the domino effect. Our family has always had problems with money. We weren't exactly poor, but for some reason, sometimes by the end of the month, we had to skip on everything, including food. Sometimes me and my brother Evan would stay with our grandparents to save up a little bit of money for our parents, since it was closer to our school. Our grandparents also had problems with money, but it was just easier that way. I was 14 and Evan was 12 when we found something weird in our grandparents' house. They were out somewhere and we were searching for some paper for our schoolwork, so we looked in one of their cupboards. We found this very fat envelope. At first, we wanted to just put it back, but Evan noticed that it was full of money. We couldn't resist and looked inside. We couldn't believe our eyes. This envelope was full of money. I think there were thousands. Me and Evan just looked at each other and quickly put it back. A few weeks passed and we were with our grandparents again. We really wanted to see a new movie that was in the cinema, but we had no money, so we remembered the envelope. We decided to take a little bit, just enough to see the movie. And then we took a bit more, because maybe we would go out and eat somewhere and buy snacks. We promised to each other that we would never take more of it. But of course, we did. Every time we wanted something, we would just take a little bit, because they wouldn't even notice the small amount of money disappearing. But when it was Evan's 13th birthday, our parents told us we couldn't celebrate this year because we had almost no money. Evan was really sad about it, and I got mad at my grandparents. Why are they hiding all this money? Didn't they want us to be happy? So I took a huge sum of money out of the envelope, and later me, Evan and his friends had a big celebration. We returned home later than usual, and our parents were very curious as to why Evan was so excited, so he told them about the party. They were confused. Even Evan tried to come up with some excuse, but we were forced to tell the truth. Our parents were so mad, but not at us. Our grandparents never supported them in any way and left them to manage their lives themselves. You see, my parents met when they were young. Everything happened very fast, and they weren't ready to start a family. Of course, my grandparents weren't happy about this either, and they had a strained relationship. But nobody knew that our grandparents actually had some money. Next time all of us met, there was a huge fight between my parents and my grandparents. My mother remembered all the times when we needed money, and my grandparents never helped, even when we really needed it. And how they tried to raise us, but were forced into poverty, and my grandparents lied and said they had no money. At one point, Mum started to look through their cupboards, trying to find the money she felt she was entitled to. It was then that our grandmother calmly took the envelope, threw it at my mum's face, and said, "Take it and leave." We drove home in silence. Nobody knew what to say, because it felt like all the dirty secrets of our family had been revealed in one night, and there was no chance for any of us to ever go back. Of course, Evan and I still loved our parents, so when they said that our grandparents weren't part of the family anymore, we listened. From this point onward, every mention of our grandparents caused a fight in our house. I felt like I hated them, but Evan hated them even more, because he was younger and was listening more closely to what our parents were saying, and our life didn't really get better with this money. Soon it was all gone, because we needed to buy some stuff for the house, including a lot of things we needed to repair. Our house had been in a really bad shape for years. 3 years passed, and all this time we were thinking that our grandparents were evil, cold people. We had zero contact with them, until Grandpa called us and invited us to our grandmother's funeral. It was sad. My grandfather looked so small and thin, not like he was a few years ago. Nobody really talked during the funeral, and the worst part was that Evan refused to go because he hated our grandparents. Grandpa put a bouquet of lilies on the grave and smiled with sadness. They were our grandmother's favourite flowers. After this, our parents started talking about how soon Grandpa would also die and we could sell their house afterward. I didn't know what to think, and it seemed beyond cruel, but my mother just hated him so much for never being a proper father to her. They asked me and Evan if we would start a relationship with Grandpa to get on his good side. Evan refused, but I said yes, partly because I could never forget Grandpa's face when he was looking at Grandma's grave. He was very happy to see me, especially because he had no one to talk to. He told me how hard the past 2 years had been. Grandmother was old and sick, and the sadness of losing us made her deteriorate really fast. They didn't have any money for treatment either, because they gave us all of their savings. And then he dropped the bomb of truth. This envelope was intended for me and Evan, to pay, at least partly, for our college education. They had Mum when they were young, so they were always struggling with money. They couldn't be good parents because, well, they were just always tired. And the same thing happened to Mum. She ran away with Dad and cut all ties to them. Soon afterwards she got pregnant and was forced to return and get into contact with our grandparents again. They wanted us to have a different life, and because our parents were so young and wanted to party, they couldn't just give the money to them. That would have simply wasted all of it. I don't know what to think. For years I had hated them, but now it was all different, and my parents didn't want to listen to any of it, claiming it was all lies. Evan was on my parents' side, even though I really tried to show him he was different. I spent a lot of time with my grandpa, helping him with chores, watching movies, and just talking. I completely forgot about my mission to get on his good side. But I did, although not on purpose. Sadly, Grandpa was old, and his health wasn't the best, so it was clear that he didn't have a lot of time left. And in a surprising turn of events, in his will, Grandpa left the house and remaining money to me. All of it. I had just turned 18 and was finishing school. My parents were happy and started to plan what they would do when they sold the house. It was like a ticking time bomb that would explode as soon as I would tell them that all of it belonged to me and Evan. When they did find out, they couldn't believe their ears and demanded that I leave because I now had a house. So I did. I decided against selling the house and started living here, experimenting with Airbnb and working, trying to save some money for when I was ready to apply to colleges, because that's what my grandparents would want me to do. And honestly, life got much better. Evan sometimes visited me, and he definitely felt scared being in the house because it seemed like our parents were going insane. For some reason, they had even more problems with money, and they were mad at me that I had the house. I promised Evan that he could move in with me as soon as he turned 18. My parents kept begging me to sell the house or at least share some money from the Airbnb with them, but I needed all of it just to stay afloat. So one day, they just moved in. They didn't ask anything. They just showed up with their luggage and shouted, "Surprise!" I couldn't just say no to them. They were actually trying to sell our old house, and because they took most of the rooms, I couldn't rent them to anyone. I was pretty sure they were doing this on purpose, to either force me to sell the house or so they could sell our old one. They quickly removed all of the pictures of my grandparents and made it their own home without asking me anything. I couldn't just go to the police and tell them that my family invaded my own house, right? The only one that was nice to me back then was Evan. He was old enough to see how rotten our parents were, and it was painful to live with them because they kept spending all the money on partying and useless things. But this time, unlike when I was a kid, I had actually been noticing it. Every time I tried to talk some sense into them, they would act like victims, the same as they did with our grandparents. I hated going home, so I spent most of my days working. One evening when I finished my shift, I was so exhausted I had a nervous breakdown and just sat on the ground, shivering from the cold. I didn't know what to do. I knew I needed to escape all of this, no matter what. So I packed my bags at home and told my parents that they could have the house and could do anything they wanted with it. I left right afterward and moved to a small room, cutting all contact with my family, except Evan. I can barely afford this room, and I would have to wait at least another year before even trying to apply to colleges. There is only one good thing that has come out of all of this. Evan promised that as soon as he finishes school, he will start working and we can rent an apartment together. And I really, really hope that it will get better, because I don't want to be forced to live like this. Thank you for listening to my story. Please cherish your parents and grandparents if they are good. Share this story with other people so they will know how things like this can happen in life.